Welcome to I Didn't Know That Was in the Bible. Today we're going to be looking at the three denials of Peter. And we're going to also look at Jesus' response to them. And so to begin, I thought we would take a look at Matthew chapter 26, and we're going to be looking at verses 33 and 34. And here we're going to have Jesus' warning of Peter's denial. And then Peter replied, "Even if all fall away on account of you, I never will." Jesus answered, "I tell you the truth, this very night, before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. So we have this prophecy made that Peter will deny the Christ. And we'll see when, for example, in the book of Matthew, as we go on to chapter 26, verse 69 through 75, that Jesus indeed does that. In fact, we have in all the Gospels, Luke 22, verses 56 through 62, and in John 18, 15 through 18, and 25 through 27. And so all of these are related to this particular denial. Now, we won't go there, due to lack of time, but you can go there and read it for yourself, but I will summarize. And basically, Jesus was on trial, and while he was on trial, Peter waited out in the courtyard, warming himself near a fire. And a maiden had approached him and said to him at this point, she said, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth." And or Jesus the Galilean is the word that she had said it, but he denied it. And a few minutes later, as he went out to the gateway, another woman approached and said to him, "This fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth," and he denied it again. And he did so with an oath this time, says, "I do not know the man." He was very definite about it. And then finally, after a third time, they said that surely you are one of them because your accent gives you away. And so then he began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, "I do not know this man." And it was at this point the rooster crowed, and Peter remembered the word that Jesus had spoken, that before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. And then he went out and wept very bitterly. Now we sort of move along in time here to after Jesus' resurrection. And that's going to take us to the book of John, and we're going to be looking at chapter 21, and I'm going to be reading verses 15 through 17. Now here, after Jesus' death and resurrection, at a certain point, the apostles decided that they were going to go off and do what they knew best, which was fishing. And they were out in their boat, and of course they had gone all night long and they hadn't gotten a catch. And then they saw a man walking on the shore, and the man said to them at that time, try throwing your net out into the water again, which they did, and they had gotten this large number of fish. Well, right there and then, of course, Peter recognized that it was the Master, that it was Jesus, and he jumped in the water and he swam ashore. And later on, all the other apostles also followed suit. And Jesus, of course, had a fish, which is a symbol of our people, of course, Christians. He had it, and he was cooking it, and they shared a meal together. And after this meal, Jesus approaches Peter, and at this point, and this is where we're going to start, at verse 15 of this reading. Now when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these?" "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." Verse 16. Again Jesus said, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?" He answered, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said, "Take care of my sheep." The third time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, "Do you love me?" He said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Jesus said, "Feed my sheep." Now, the one thing I want you to note, and there's something that doesn't really come out in the English translation, and that's the fact that there is two actually translations for the word love. One of them is the word agapio, which means to love. And it means in a social and a moral sense. You could almost say it's a deep, abiding love, a pure love. And then the other word which is used is the word filio. And filio is, well, it's not as extreme, it's more in terms of a friendship in that regard, to be a friend or to be fond of. And so if we were to read it in that sense, it actually gives a little bit different, how would you say, meaning, or a different, you get a different reaction to what it is that we're reading. So we find that in verse 15, where we start off, where he says, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me more than these? Do you love me?" He uses the word agapio, which means, do you love me deeply, in a deep sense. And of course, Peter follows up with says, "Yes, Lord," he said, "you know that I love you." Now, in this case, he uses the word filio. So he's saying, yes, you know that I'm fond of you. So you see the contrast there, where Jesus is saying, do you have this deep, abiding love for me? And we have Peter responding by saying, yes, you know I'm fond of you. So it's a sort of a lesser extent, as you can see there. Well, Jesus goes on and then says, "Feed my lambs." And of course, lambs, they're a younger version of the sheep. So again, he's talking about being an apostle and being able to spread the word to those that are probably have very young ears. Then it goes on to say, and again Jesus says, "Simon, son of John, do you truly love me?" So again, he uses that word agapio. In other words, do you have this great abiding love for me? And he answered, he says, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." And here again, he just says, you know that I'm fond of you, just like a friend. Finally, he goes on and then he says, "Take care of my sheep," which of course is the adult people of the flock. Then he goes the third time and he says to them, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Now this time, Jesus is using the lesser word, the word that is filio, which is saying, well then, are you fond of me? So it's almost like he's trying to trigger something in Peter, which indeed he does, because in the next line, we have Peter was hurt because Jesus had asked him a third time. Now recall that he had denied him 3 times. So what Jesus is doing is now having him 3 times, more or less, show his love to him, to commit himself, I guess is a better word, commit himself to Christ. And then he says, "Do you love me?" And he says, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Now in this case, we have Peter using the word agapio, that I have this great, deep, abiding love in you. And that's what it is that Jesus wanted to get out of Peter. Now, the one thing you have to keep in mind is that as people who are followers of Christ, and those that want to be true disciples and want to spread the word, that they need to have that commitment, that true, deep, abiding love. It just can't be something occasional, something that is on again and off again. Because in this world, we are going to be coming, against a lot of very hostile forces. I've seen this even in social media. People do not feel comfortable with the Word of God because perhaps it's a reflection of themselves and they can't bear to see that reflection. Now I want to go to one other place, and that is in Hosea 6:6. And we're going to go ahead and go there, and then I'll make my point afterwards. It's just one verse, and it says, and this is God speaking now, it's Old Testament, "For I desire mercy," and of course mercy can be translated love. So let's do so. "For I desire love, not sacrifice, an acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. So you see, what God is trying to say is that he wants our deep, abiding love. And we need to keep that in our lives if we're going to be effective Christians. If we feel that need to spread the word to others that expect that we're going to have some pushback. It also reminds me, we won't go there, but the parable of the sower and how difficult it is sometimes in this world to get the word of God accepted. And you know, if you remember in the parable how it was that the farmer had gone out to sow his seed, and he was scattering his seed. Some of it had fallen among a path and was trampled on, and the birds of the air ate it up, and some fell on rock, and when it came up the plants withered because they had no moisture, and so on and so forth. So the whole point being is you're going to expect when you get out into the world that they're not going to be all that receptive to the word. And we just need to have that commitment and to put really God first in our lives, because it's extremely important, because that's what gives us the incentive and the strength to get out there and to sow that seed. So the Lord should always be our priority. He should always be first in our lives. And because of that, of course, then we can expect that we will be richly rewarded. Okay, so that's the message for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, as always, I ask that you give a thumbs up. I also ask that if you haven't already, that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. And whenever you hit that little notification bell, of course, when any time anything new is up, that you will be notified. It's important that you do it, and I keep emphasizing it, because the more that subscribers are on there, and the more thumbs up we get, and then the more that YouTube will distribute this video out so others may see it as well. And then, of course, all of those that are on Neighbor, which is another site. Again, please spread the word locally to people. Our numbers are low right now. We're just getting started. I'd love to see them grow, because again, it's important to me that we do spread that word. Amos 8:11, as I've always mentioned, the famine in the end times is not for bread, but for hearing the word of God. And so I think it is necessary that we all sort of contribute in getting the word out there. It's so very important. So have a wonderful day. God bless you, and I hope to see you soon.